So guys, the second week of FNCS qualifiers has just concluded, and in today's video, I want to go over all the different things that I learned from watching FNCS over these past 2 weeks. Now guys, as you obviously know, my channel has been kind of dry for the past 2 weeks. I've not really been uploading too much, and the reason for that is because I wanted to really wait until this FNCS concludes in order to make a comprehensive video explaining exactly what happened, how I think the Chapter 5 meta stacks up against the FNCS new format, and exactly how you guys can improve and pop off in FNCS in the coming Chapter 5 seasons. Be sure to stick around to the end of the video so you guys do not miss any important information. Let's hop right into it. So guys, I want to start off with a pretty simple fact. This is going to be that every single team that's going to be on NA Central and EU, that's going to be teams ranging from Vico and Pink, who won the Week 1 qualifier on EU, over to Rituals and Reet. That's also going to be the team that won the NA Central qualifier for Week 1. Every single team that played and popped off in this FNCS tournament had a successful game plan for each stage of the game. Now this is going to obviously be separated into the early, the mid, and the late game. And essentially, I want to go over each 3 sections of the game, exactly how they had a game plan for all of these different times in the game. So guys, to start off, for the early game, something that I see a lot of the time with really new duos, people who aren't as experienced as the pro players, they really go into these games with no idea of where they're landing, how to loot it, and how to play off of it. I think the best thing that all of these winning teams did is that they landed the same place every single game, they had the same loot route, and they landed in the same rough spot, and they knew how to get the best drop for their POI, which not only caused them to never lose off spawn, it also really helped with their overall rotation and overall consistency throughout the early game. Now, as long as you guys have a successful way to land at your POI and to make sure that you always leave there alive and stacked up on loot, you should be all set for the early game plan. Now for the mid game, guys, it's a little bit more complicated depending on which round you're in. However, in general, I think these tips can apply to every single round. That can be rounds 1 through 4, whether that's going to be the opens or the finals. Now, in terms of the mid-game plan, essentially what you guys should try and do during the mid-game is you should try to rotate out of your POI, get some Storm Surge tags if you need it, try to get eliminations if you are low on points and you need it, and then overall try to base up on a power position. Now, this is going to tie into a thing that I learned later in the video. However, overall, the mid-game is focused on primarily rotation and setting yourself up for success into the late game. Now, the late game is a little bit more complicated, guys. Obviously, there's going to be tons of moving zones, a lot of chaos, and a lot of congestion in these tarping situations. For the late game, I'd recommend you guys simplify your game plan down to 3 things. That's going to be scouting, rotating, and refreshes. Now what that means, guys, is if you guys are able to scout for a rotation to a certain zone, path your way to that zone in tarp while doing so, and then get refreshes whenever you guys need. That can be when you guys are low on materials, low on ammo, low on health. If you guys are able to do those 3 things, your late game is going to go pretty successfully. You're going to at least make it to the top 5, if not higher. But guys, regardless, every single team that played FNCS and succeeded had a game plan for each aspect of the game. You guys need to make sure you do as well, and that's the first thing that I learned. The second thing that I learned from this FNCS these past 2 weeks, that's going to be every team that succeeded had some variety of map control during the mid and late game. Now, if you guys don't know what map control is, let me quickly summarize that for you. Map control is the aspect of controlling a certain sector or area of the map. That can be using high ground, that can be using different weapons and sight lines to control map. Overall, map control is a really important attribute of competitive Fortnite, not only because it creates different options for you guys to rotate and for you guys to use the map to your advantage, it also creates a physical advantage over the other players because you might have a high ground advantage where you can actually get more eliminations and tags onto other players. Every team that succeeded had map control. The team that won week 2 on Europe is going to be Janice and Flixie. They had a really good aspect of trying to get the island as much as possible, base up on high ground positions, and then take control of the map using that scenario. Map control is crucial, guys. Every team across the board did it on all regions. You need to make sure you have it as you guys are going forward into these games. And that's going to be the second thing I learned. Let's move on to the third thing I learned from this FNCS past 2 weeks. I also understood that every team who succeeded had a simple rotation in their zones throughout. Now this is going to be from the early game zones all the way to the end game zones. Their rotations were simple. They were simply moving, using mobility, using flow berries, using fizz. All these different things were able to help them rotate to the zone easy and untouched. The more complicated you make your rotations, that being maybe taking a longer route or using more materials, the more likely you are to panic and kind of lose track of where you are and then overcomplicate your rotation and eventually get eliminated because of it. Baka and Pars, which was the team that won on NA East on the second week, that's going to be a team that's really good at rotating very simply. They were able to kind of rotate throughout the endgame zones with no problem by making sure they scouted before every zone and making sure that they not overcomplicate the method with which they actually rotated. Now this ties me into my next thing that I learned, which is going to be that every team who succeeded had good timing during the 8th zone of the game. In the 8th zone, guys, it's going to be the first zone that's completely outside of the Storm Eye. I'd recommend you guys wait till the zone actually starts moving for you guys to start rotating. If you rotate too early, oftentimes you're going to need to use too many materials to protect yourself from firing enemies, and then you're going to need to box up, and there's even a chance that you may get server focused. Now that's a big problem, guys. If you focus on rotating late in the 8th zone, not only will this help you guys conserve your materials and find better positioning, you guys will also be able to scout for longer, so therefore you can maybe find a better rotation. Now, this kind of brings me to my next point, which is going to be that I learned every team who scouted was very successful throughout the weeks. Scouting, guys, in my opinion, is the most overlooked aspect of the endgame. If you guys are able to scout successfully throughout the game, that can be even in early game and mid game for rotations, you guys are definitely going to succeed. However, where scouting really counts is going to be in the end game. Before the zone starts moving, you guys have around 30 seconds to a minute to actually focus on finding yourself a path to actually rotate throughout the zone. You guys can go up into your cone, click your edit button, hold that, and then kind of peek through it, look for different areas you guys can rotate, look where players are moving, and look where players are editing and opening walls, which players are playing more aggressive, where's the dead side, where's the congested side of zone. This is all important things that you guys can only get through scouting. Now, once you guys are able to scout, you guys will be able to determine the best rotation, and therefore you guys will be successful throughout the end games of these tournaments. Now, in terms of your actual endgame play, guys, I also learned that every single team who succeeded was really good at switching and tarping. Now, this should be a competitive fundamental in my advantage. I think that a lot of players tend to overlook this as a fundamental. I think that switch tarping is an extremely important aspect of any duo. So essentially, guys, one player on your team can be tarping and the other one can be obviously doing their other roles like blocking off the back, looking for tags. But then once that player runs out of a lot of materials, yes, you can obviously drop the materials. However, if there's kind of a pressing situation, you're not able to do so, the other player should continue tarping. Let's say the other player has to heal up. You as a partner should try and go and tarp for your teammate. This is a really important aspect that really promotes duos to do quite well, especially in these congested endgames. You guys need to have a very good flow of switch tarping, know exactly when your teammate needs to stop and heal and take his time doing something, and then you should automatically think, hey, I need to keep tarping. This is an important situation in the endgame and we've got to rotate. Now, it doesn't matter if you're an IGL, a support player, a fragger, every single player should know how to tarp regardless of their role. So that's a really big fundamental that a lot of people overlooked. Now, I also learned that every team who succeeded was really good at the basic endgame fundamentals. That being refarming trees, bricks, and other materials, blocking the back of your tarp, and then dropping mats when your team is stopped and regrouping. Now guys, the first one, refarming, basically if you guys come across a tree inside of your tarp or any other natural material, try to farm it, guys. Obviously there's no point in missing out, even if it's only 50 mats. It's really important to have that stuff. The second thing, blocking the back of the tarp, guys, this is crucial because there's often times where teams are snuck up on, especially if they're less experienced, and they oftentimes get eliminated because of it because they're just not aware of their surroundings. So blocking back tarp is crucial. However, dropping mats when you're stopped, in my opinion, is the most important. So let's say that you and your duo party need to stop and heal up. And let's say that you're kind of be the fragger, and then your duo partner is going to be the IGL who normally tarps. When you guys stop to heal up, you should automatically drop materials and other resources for your duo partner. These things need to be automatic. Refarming, blocking back tarp, and dropping mats. Those things need to be automatic cues for when you guys are going to be doing that during the end game, because there's so much other stuff going on. That is some stuff that you guys should not have to worry about and you should kind of automatically just do. Now guys, this leads me into my next point, which is going to be that every single team who succeeded was smart in the way that they got refreshes for their resources. A lot of times players will try to get refreshes and they'll tunnel vision and overcommit to them. They'll try to kind of eliminate a player, get into a bad position, and then get eliminated as a result. However, a lot of times that when the teams are actually able to win these fights, it's going to be when they're fighting as a unit. This means that you're not going to be 1v2ing or trying to 1v1 even. You have much more likely chance of winning a 2v2 or a 2v1 than you do a 1v1 or a 1v2. This means that you need to fight as a unit when you're trying to get refreshes. You and your IGL should have the basic amount of chemistry to know when it's a good time to go for refreshes and other stuff like that. Essentially, guys, refreshes are crucial, but the way you get them and the way that you commit to them is crucial. Don't overcommit and focus on getting smart refreshes when you actually need them. Now guys, the final thing that I learned, this is crucial to actually winning the games and trying to get those win points. I learned that every single team who succeeded was able to take high ground when they saw an opportunity. Now, the biggest opportunity that I saw when watching all of these games, every time that the height team is tarping in the middle of zone, meaning that they're actually tarping in the center of the storm eye, they lose a lot of visibility and a lot of sight lines down onto the players below them. Oftentimes, if you see pro players or more experienced teams, they're going to be kind of tarping around the edges of the zone, trying to focus on tarping in the edges of the circle, trying to focus on shooting enemy players down below. However, if there's a team up above that's kind of tarping in the center of zone, instantly you should kind of be like, hey, this team probably isn't as experienced at competitive play. I should try to take high ground, considering that they're probably not going to expect me coming up, and they probably won't even see me coming up because of the lack of sightlines. Now, overall, if you guys are able to actually try and do this, your chances of getting high ground go way up, and as you all know, having high ground and playing it right in a competitive endgame is the best way to secure yourself a win and overall pop off in FNCS. Guys, I know that was a lot in this video, but I did go over all of these different things that I learned from this FNCS and watching it these past 2 weeks. I'm actually looking forward to making really detailed how to succeed in FNCS videos as the next seasons roll around. But for now, I think this is a really comprehensive guide of how you guys can actually focus on becoming more of an FNCS player rather than just a sweat or a cash cup warrior. But anyways, guys, that is about it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye, guys.